Hello, my dear students. Welcome back to our channel IFS on Life Sciences. In this session, we are going to discuss the questions of GATE Biotechnology held on month of February in 2020. In this particular session, we are going to discuss first 25 questions, which are each question is of 1 mark. So let's go through these questions one by one. Do subscribe our channel IFS Online Life Sciences so you remain updated whenever we upload a new session. You can also visit our website ifsonline.com for online courses and other things if you want interested in study material or test series. Moving to the questions. This is the first question from GATE 2020 Biotechnology BT. The question is that protein P, it is saying that there is some protein P, let's say this is a protein P, becomes functional upon phosphorylation, means or it is normally inactive, and if there is a phosphorylation, from phosphorylation we mean that there is, let's say, on some R chain of amino acid there is an addition of a phosphate group. Then the same enzyme which was inactive, it becomes active. It becomes active. Now, question is, and this is saying that this phosphorylation is on serine. Now, question is that replacing the serine with which amino acid, means these are the 4 amino acids, with which amino acids will result in a phosphomimic mutant of a protein P. So, for प्रोटीन टू बी एक्टिव, लेट्स से दिस इज सम काइंड ऑफ एंजाइम, और इसको एक्टिव होने के लिए फॉर दिस एक्टिव ऑन द सीरीन which on its side chain it is having a CH2OH group. To be active, what is necessary is that there must be an addition of a phosphate group over here. There must be a negative charge, and in this scenario this protein become active. So in other words, at this place where there is a serine, you must replace it with some kind of amino acid which can provide a negative charge, which can mimic the phosphorylated state of serine. And one such amino acid out of the given choices would be alanine, is not bearing any kind of charge, phenylalanine is also not bearing a charge, while lysine, it will provide a positive charge because it is a basic amino acid. Only one option left behind, and that option is aspartic acid. So my dear students, correct answer would be that at this, instead of serine, if you place some amino acid like glutamic acid over here, so let's say you put E over here, what will happen is that now you will have a COO minus, which will mimic the phosphate group which is attached to a serine. Serine, if it is phosphorylated, is also providing a negative charge, and if aspartic acid, it also get phosphorylated, means it is replaced by aspartic acid, then it will also provide a negative charge. So correct answer for this would be aspartic acid. Moving to next question, question number 2. Question number 2 is straightforward, it is direct, and in this question what has been asked is that what is the function of RAS protein? You know that RAS protein is a small g protein, and the function of this RAS protein is in a signal transduction, especially against the growth factor. So little bit you would be aware, as we have already discussed in our online classes, that there is a receptor for some growth factors. Often it belongs to a family of receptor tyrosine kinase. So let's say some growth factor binds to it. Let's say as an example, affidal growth factor binds to it, due to which there is a dimerization of receptors, and after dimerization of receptors, the enzymatic domain in a cytosol, due to a cross phosphorylation, the enzymatic domain of a cytosolic region, it get activated. Once this tyrosine kinase activity of a receptor get activated, what it do is that it activate associated protein which is with the receptor, that is GRAP2, which activate another protein referred to as SOS, which is a guanine nucleotide exchange factor, which finally activate a small g protein referred to as RAS. And from activation we mean that what it do is that it displaces GDP, and now instead of GDP, RAS is bound with a GTP. And once a RAS is bound with a GTP, it is in active state. It will induce a signal. And we have studied in detail that signaling components would be, you can have a MAP triple K followed by a MAP double K, and then finally there would be an activation of a MAPK, and MAPK, it will migrate to the nucleus, and once it migrates to nucleus, it leads to an expression of some target genes. So the correct answer out of the given choices would be that trimeric GTPase. No, it is not a trimeric GTPase, it is a monomeric GTPase. It is a monomeric GTPase involved in relaying signal from a cell surface. You can see that there is signal from a cell surface to a nucleus. Yes, that's true, because RAS is one of the protein which is involved in this particular signaling pathway. Trimeric, it is false. It's a monomeric GTPase involved in regulation of cytoskeleton. No, you should also know that in regulation of cytoskeleton there is another small G protein which is referred to as Rho. If it would have been Rho, or it would have been RAC, or it has been CDC42, then we can say that they would be involved in a cytoskeleton. So this statement is also false. Moving to question number 3, in this question we have to find out that which of the statement is correct. We have to choose the correct statement. Basically the question is regarding the cancer. So let's go through these options one by one and try to find out that which statement is correct. The first statement is that viruses can play a role in causing a human cancer. Yes, that's true. We know that HTLV, that is human T leukotropic virus, as well as various other viruses like Burkitt lymphoma could also be caused by viruses, herpes simplex viruses, hepatitis viruses. They can cause a cancer. So this statement P is true. So B option cannot be correct, because we have to put a P, which is there in all 3 options. Second statement is the tumor suppressor gene can be turned off without any change its DNA sequence. Yes, because for the expression what we need, suppose this, let's say this is some kind of tumor suppressor gene. Let's say it may be a retinoblastoma or any other tumor suppressor gene. And for expression we need a promoter. So this is the sequence, let's say this is the sequence of a gene. We are not altering any kind of, we are not altering the sequence of tumor suppressor gene. And then also if we are having some mutation at this promoter site, then also there could be, we can say the gene could be turned off. Further, even we can say that there may be some transcript factor which may be needed for expression of this tumor suppressor gene, and there would be some different gene from which this transcription factor would be encoded. And even if there is a mutation in trans, that is, it is a mutation in a transcript factor which is responsible for expression of tumor genes, if that get also mutated, there would be effect on a tumor suppressor gene. So within a promoter sequence of tumor suppressor gene, and even there may be some other regulatory gene which is coding some kind of activator which is responsible for expression of tumor suppressor gene, it get mutated, then also there could be, we can say tumor suppressor gene could be turned off. So P statement is also true, Q statement is also true. R statement, alteration of micron RNA expression level contribute to the development of cancer. Yes, that's also true, because we have already discussed in our online classes that micron RNA is one of the RNA which can down-regulate the expression of various oncogenes or proto-oncogenes, do not allow them to express more than what is needed. And if there is an alteration of some kind of micron RNA, it might be the case that there is an overexpression of proto-oncogenes, and if there is overexpression of proto-oncogenes, it can lead to an uncontrolled growth. So even our statement is also true. So correct combinations would be P, Q and R. Now moving to next question, that is question number 4. This is a direct and straightforward question. In this question what has been asked is that which class of antibody is first made by developing B cell in a bone marrow. In other words, we can simplify this question that the first antibody which is produced after birth would be, so direct answer would be immunoglobulin M. So immunoglobulin M is the antibody which is primarily produced. Immunoglobulin M is an antibody which is produced during primary immune response. Immunoglobulin M is the antibody which can act as a surface receptors on a B lymphocyte. We all know. So correct answer would be immunoglobulin M. Question number 5. In question number 5, basically it is related with a signal transduction, and the question is related with the ions which are utilized in a signal transduction, or we can say in a cell-to-cell signaling. Let's go through these statements. So there is some reason is given and some assertion is given. We have to identify that which of the statement is true or false. So A statement, that cell use this is assertion and this is reason. So it has been shuffled, but first let's go through assertion and then try to find out the reason. Cells use calcium and not sodium for cell-to-cell signaling. Yes, that statement is true, because we know that calcium is one of the most utilized secondary messengers. Sodium is not being utilized as a secondary messenger. In cell-to-cell signaling, the role of secondary messenger is played by the calcium. So assertion is true, and reason is given here. That reason is given over here, and what is the reason? In the cytosol, concentration of sodium ion is lower than that of calcium ion. No, the concentration of sodium ion in a cytosol is comparatively higher as compared to the concentration of calcium ion. The ion which is in lowest concentration in a cytosol is calcium ion. It is either present outside the cell or it is sequestered in endoplasmic reticulum. So this reason is not appropriate for assertion A. So we can say that assertion A is true, but the reason given is false. So answer would be option 4. Moving to question number 6. Again, my dear students, this question is straightforward. This is question again from cancer, or you can also say that it is a question from secondary metabolites. The question is that vincristine and vinblastine, these are two commercially important secondary metabolites which are obtained from Vinca rosea or Acanthus roseus. They are example of. We know that both vincristine and vinblastine, they are indole alkaloids. Both vincristine and vinblastine, they bind to the, we can say, heterodimers of tubulin protein, do not allow them to polymerize. That's what we have studied. So, but here the question is that it belongs to which family? It is not a flavonoid, it is not a terpenoid, it is not a steroid, it is basically an alkaloid, and more accurately, within an alkaloid, it is, we can say, indole alkaloid. So, correct answer would be option A. Moving to the next question. This question is very simple. It says that DNA, it has to be produced from an RNA template, and if DNA has to be produced from an RNA template, what it is called? So as you know, means what it is asking is, let's say this is some kind of double-stranded DNA, and from double-stranded DNA we are producing, let's say, an RNA that could be a messenger RNA, and this messenger RNA, it is being utilized as a template for the production of DNA. We are again producing a DNA from this messenger RNA. This is the now DNA which is produced using messenger RNA as a template. So what you name this DNA? You know directly such kind of DNA is referred to as cDNA, because cDNA, they are produced from the messenger, using messenger RNA as a template, and cDNA, or full form of C, is basically a, we can say, complementary DNA, a DNA which is complementary to an RNA. So correct answer would be option 4. Moving to next question, question number 8. Basically, this question is related with the techniques utilized for the separation of biomolecules, basically from chromatography. We know that chromatography, they can separate the molecules either on basis of charge, that is isoelectric point. They can separate the molecules on basis of the size, or they can separate on basis of their adsorption, hydrophobicity. Different kind of techniques they are available. Now, let's go through this question and try to analyze with that which could be a correct answer for this given question. In question, what has been said is that there are two stridine tagged proteins. So let's say these are two stridine tagged protein. This is also having a stridine tag, and there is another protein which is also having a stridine tag. Let's say we assume that there are two proteins, protein A and protein B. They are having a identical molecular weight. They are identical molecular weight means you can assume that this is 100 kilodalton and even B would be also 100 kilodalton. That is both protein A as well as protein B. Let's assume that they are of same molecular weight. But their isoelectric point is a variable. Isoelectric point of, let's say, we can say protein A is 5.6 and isoelectric point for protein B is 6.8. Which of the following techniques you will use to separate them? So now you must know the criteria on basis of which these techniques they are being utilized. The statement A says that denaturating polyacrylamide gel electrophoresis. This cannot be utilized because here you can see that the mass is same. Size exclusion chromatography. No, it cannot be utilized because the mass is exactly same. Ion exchange chromatography, yes, it's going to be used because we have studied in a class that ion exchange chromatography separate the molecules on their isoelectric point. So correct answer must be an ion exchange chromatography. Nickel affinity chromatography could not also be utilized. Nickel affinity chromatography could be utilized only if one of the protein is having a polystyrene tag, while another protein is lacking a polystyrene tag. Here both the proteins, they are having a polystyrene tag, so they cannot be utilized separated using a nickel affinity chromatography. Then moving to next question, question number 9. Question number 9 says that during a positive negative selection process, transformed cells expressing which enzyme, means here you have to put a name of some enzyme, are killed in the presence of GAN cyclovir in the medium, enzyme, or we can say gene, which is going to code a enzyme. So this is a, my dear students, a direct question. You have to identify the gene product which is sensitive to a GAN cyclovir. So direct answer would be that the enzyme would be herpes thymidine kinase or viral thymidine kinase. Because we know that when we go for we can say gene therapy, gene knock-in, gene knockout using a homologous recombination mechanism, what you do is that you have one 5' homology arm, you are having a one 3' homology arm. Within this there is some kind of gene of interest or the DNA segment which you want to insert, and within these homology arms, between these homology arm, that is between 5' and the 3', what you put is one positive selection cassette, and downstream the 3' homology arm, downstream of 3' homology arm, you put some negative selection cassette. Generally the positive selection cassette which is utilized is G148, which provide a resistance against neomycin, and a negative selection cassette you utilize a gene taken from a herpes virus, that is basically a thymidine kinase. And you know that the cells which if you put these cells on a medium containing a neomycin as well as the medium is also containing a GAN cyclovir, then those cells will not able to survive, which are expressing an enzyme referred to as thymidine kinase. So answer would be viral thymidine kinase, because viral thymidine kinase is sensitive to GAN cyclovir. Question number 10. Here some viruses they are being given, and it has been asked that which of these viruses they could be utilized as a vector. Almost all viruses could be utilized, but here it is being said that which will have a highest frequency of genomic integration. If you need a higher frequency of genomic integration, you have to use some kind of retroviruses, because you all know that retroviruses, what they do is that these retroviruses which are having a RNA as a genome, this is converted to a DNA, and then this double-stranded DNA, it will get integrated somewhere into the host genome. So answer must be that if you need to use some kind of vector which has a high genomic integration potential, then you must use some kind of retroviruses. Adenoviruses, they are having double-stranded DNA virus genome. Adenoasteroid virus also having a double-stranded DNA viruses. Herpes simplex viruses, they are also having a double-stranded DNA. Lentiviruses, basically in this virus we have group, we are having a retroviruses like HIV, MMTV, etc. So correct choice for this would be a lentivirus. Being a retrovirus, it will able to convert their RNA into DNA, and then this DNA will get integrated into genome, so they will have a highest frequency of genomic integration. So answer of this would be option C. Moving to question number 11. This question is also very straightforward. Basically, it is from the Agrobacterium TI plasmid, and you have to identify that which statement is correct for TI plasmid. For this, you must need a very basic information that let's say this is the TI plasmid, which is often around a 200 kilobase pair, and there is very important and interesting segment on this is referred to as, this portion is referred to as tDNA, which is around 25 kb. This is tDNA, and this tDNA, it is having left border and right border. Now you must know that what kind of genes they are present on this tDNA. So tDNA, it has a genes for, yes, you know, auxin biosynthesis. There could be genes like IA synthesis. Yes, there are also genes like IPT. The genes for, we can say, cytokinin biosynthesis, they are also there. Cytokinin biosynthesis there, auxin biosynthetic genes, they are there within a tDNA. We are talking about the tDNA. As well as there are genes for opine synthesis. Opine synthesis genes, they are also present within a tDNA. And outside this tDNA, in this region, you may have, here you may have a virulence region, and here you may have an opine catabolism genes. So here you can have a Vir region, and which is outside the tDNA, and here you can have a opine catabolism genes, and this could be, let's say, origin. Now let's go. If you know this information, then definitely, my dear students, you can solve this question very easily. You have to keep these points in mind, that what are the genes which are present in tDNA and what are the genes which are outside the tDNA but present in a Ti plasmid. So the first statement says that there is Vir genes are located within the tDNA segment. No, they are outside. So statement A is false. Statement B says that phytohormone biosynthetic genes are located outside of the tDNA. From phytohormones, we mean that genes for auxin biosynthesis or gene for cytokinin biosynthesis. And as we have already monitored, that these genes, they are present within a tDNA. So this statement is also false. C statement is opine catabolism genes are located within the tDNA. No, opine synthetic genes, they are present. Opine catabolism genes, they are outside the tDNA. So this statement is also false. D statement is opine biosynthetic genes are located within the tDNA segment. Yes, this statement is true. So answer would be option 4. Moving to the question number 12. Basically, this question is from the enzymes. You must, for solving this question, you must know what is the chemical nature of the enzymes. We know that 99% or more the enzymes, they are proteinaceous in nature, while rest of few enzymes, still they are an riboenzymes, where chemically they are RNA. So question is that which of the following molecule can act as a biological catalyst, means which of them they can act as an enzyme. So catalyst, biocatalyst या enzyme की तरह. So you have to identify that which of the following could act as a biocatalyst or which could act as an enzyme. So now the question is very simple. Yes, proteins, they are the most effective catalyst. 99% or more the enzymes or biocatalysts which is present in biological system, they are protein. Yes, we are also having an RNase catalyst. We have studied in online classes that there are various groups of riboenzymes. Let's say group 1 introns, group 2 introns. Besides this, we have also studied the example of ribonuclease P. We have also studied the example of peptidyl transferase. These all are the examples where an RNA is acting as a catalyst. Phospholipids, no, we do not have any example where the phospholipids, they are acting as a catalyst, because for a catalyst, some molecule must attain some kind of 3D conformation where some region could act as an active site which can convert a substrate into trans state, and later on the same substrate could be converted to a product. And this 3D state could be adopted by both proteins as well as by the RNA. So correct answer would be P and Q. Moving to next question. In this question, you have to identify that out of the given salts or acid, which of the following you can utilize to maintain the pH of an animal cell culture. So first thing you have to maintain a pH, and pH often you have to maintain around a 7. And why there is a decline in the pH? Because we know that animal cells, they release a carbon dioxide being an acidic, they will decrease the pH will decrease. So you must need something into the culture which can counterbalance the carbon dioxide. So definitely for buffering system, you can utilize if this is an acid form, you can utilize another base form which can utilize it as a bicarbonate ion. And if a mixture is having both carbon dioxide as a bicarbonate ion, now the buffering could be performed. So now you have to identify out of these given choices, which of the following could provide a bicarbonate ion? So answer would be sodium bicarbonate. Calcium chloride is a salt, cannot act as a buffer. Magnesium sulfate cannot act as a buffer. NaCl cannot act as a buffer. But sodium bicarbonate, it is going to provide you a bicarbonate ion which will act as a conjugate base and which can neutralize the carbon dioxide as well. So answer would be D. Question number 14. In question number 14, it has been asked that ki out of the given places where energy transducing membrane is present. From energy transducing membrane, we mean that the membrane which is able to convert one form of energy into another form. Let's say energy which is present in proton motive force is being converted to an ATP, or the energy which is present in sun, it is being converted to an ATP. We will say that this membrane is capable of energy transduction. Plasma membrane of bacteria, yes, because plasma membrane of bacteria has an electron transport chain, due to which it can make an electrochemical gradient, and the same electrochemical gradient later on would be utilized for an ATP biosynthesis. So the energy which is present in the flow of electron is basically utilized for a generation of electrochemical gradient. So we can say that this is an electron transport chain. Electrons, they start from NADH, finally electron moves to an oxygen. The energy in this electron flow, it is utilized for pumping the proton against gradient, and this proton against the gradient, it is going to make a electrochemical gradient across a membrane. That is one form of energy, that is energy which was an EMF, it has been converted to an electrochemical gradient. That's true. Inner membrane of chloroplast, no, it do not have any components of electron transport chain. In a chloroplast, the energy transduction doesn't occur on the membrane of chloroplast, it occurs on a thylakoid membrane. Yes, we know, dear students, it occurs on a thylakoid membrane. So Q cannot be a correct answer. Q cannot be correct answer. We have now left behind with the two choices. Inner membrane of mitochondria, yes, because inner membrane of mitochondria is analogous to a plasma membrane of bacteria. So correct answer are option P and option R. Moving to next question. This question is basically from a phylogeny. This is basically based upon the rate of substitution of amino acid in any kind of protein, which will depend upon the rate of mutation. And rate of mutation again will vary from gene to gene depending upon whether it is one of the conserved and very important gene where no substitution is allowed, or the gene where some changes are allowed, because there may be some region of this particular protein which may not be as important for its function as compared to a rest of portion. Let's go through this question rapidly and try to analyze. Amino acid sequence of cytochrome C. So let's say there is one protein referred to as cytochrome C, and there is another protein referred to as ribulose 5-phosphate epimerase. So another protein is ribulose 5-phosphate isomerase. So these are two proteins. You know that cytochrome C, it is mainly involved in the electron transport chain, transfer an electron from complex 3 to complex 4, while ribulose 5-phosphate epimerase, it is an epimerase, is belonging to a family of isomerase. This epimerase, it converts a ribulose 5-phosphate into a xylulose 5-phosphate. And out of these two choices, you can easily make it out that cytochrome C is one of the most conserved protein. Even if you can compare cytochrome C from E. coli to human, you will find the minimum changes. Now go through the questions. Let's go through the question. Amino acid sequence of cytochrome C and ribulose 5-phosphate epimerase from 40 organisms were chosen. Okay, we have selected 40 different organisms. Let's say some of bacteria would be there, some plants could be there, or even some animals could be there. And phylogenetic trees were obtained from these two proteins. Now here some assertion is given, and you have to identify that this reason for assertion is true or not. The two trees will not be identical. Yes, the two trees will not be identical because rate of substitution of amino acid in the cytochrome C is far lesser as compared to rate of substitution of amino acid in ribulose 5-phosphate epimerase. Because here we are not talking about neutral mutation, we are talking about the total changes. We are not saying that we are focusing only on the neutral changes. If we are relying on the total number of changes in the proteins, then definitely the number of amino acid substitution would be more in a ribulose 5-phosphate isomerase. Why? The reason is given over here, that the nature and frequency of mutation in two families are different. Yes, if you analyze synonymous substitution, this would be almost same in both the cases, but the rate of non-synonymous substitution is very high in case of a ribulose 1,5-phosphate apamidase as compared to a cytochrome C. So this is also true. So correct answer would be that assertion is also true, and there is a valid reason for this particular assertion. So answer out of this choice would be option A. Moving to question number 16. This is a direct straightforward question. We have already discussed it in class in multiple times. Question is that a microorganism from a salt rich, means we are talking about some kind of halophile, which is able to remain in a very high salt extreme condition, means it is a kind of, we can say, extremophile, was found to possess diglycerol tetraethers. And if you know a little bit about this also, you can simply say that it could be an RK bacteria, because this tetraethers, they are characteristic features of RK bacteria. Further, instead of fatty acids, there is a polyisoprenoid alcohol, which also suggests that it is an RK bacteria. So answer would be an RKE or RKE bacteria. Moving to question number 17. This is maths, questions from the maths. This is not my section, but the question is that a function f is follows fx to 15 if x is lesser than 1, or cx if x is greater than 1. The function f is a continuous function when the c is equal to. So it is related with the continuous function. F is a continuous function if the value of x is variable at a point c on a real line, and if it is the case, then fx, and you are varying the value of x to c, then fx should come out to be fc. So under such condition, you will see that it is a continuous function. So if you solve this, although it is not my domain, but if you solve this, you will reach to conclusion that answer would be 15. Question number 18. Again, this is the questions related with the mathematics, where it is given that z is equal to x0 plus y0, the value of delta z by delta x for x equal to 1 and y0 would be, answer would be 2. These maths questions would be taken by our maths teacher. He will explain these things in you detail. Moving to question number 19. The elemental composition of dry biomass of a yeast species is given, and it is being said that what would be the contribution of carbon to dry biomass in a percentage, and even atomic weight is given. So this question is completely very easy. Let's see what is being said, that there is a 1 carbon, okay, there is, you can say there is carbon 1, hydrogen is 1.6, proportion of oxygen is 0.4, proportion of nitrogen is 0.2, proportion of sulfur is 0.0024, and proportion of phosphorus is 0.017. What would be their contribution? That depends upon multiplication of this with its atomic weight. Atomic weight of carbon would be 12. So you can multiply it and you will get some answer. You multiply it with 1, you will get 1.6. You multiply it with 16, you will get 6.4. You multiply nitrogen with 14, you will get 0. Or we can say 2.8. That would be the value you are going to get. Similarly, multiply a sulfur with 31, you will get some value. Multiply it with 32, you will get some value. So now this would be the total weight of we can say a biomass. You have to add all these things, and once you add this total, what you have to do is, now you have to calculate a percentage. So what you have to do is, the carbon percentage would be equivalent to 12 divided by whatever the total you are getting over here into 100, and if you do this, you will get the answer 51.24. So total biomass weight is the summation of all these things, and the contribution by the carbon is 12. So if you divide it with 12 divided with total biomass, you will get a percentage. Answer would be 51.24. Question number 20. Basically, this question is from a chemical equilibrium, or you can say a little bit of thermodynamics. You can easily solve this question. In this question, what is being said, that there are solvent A and solvent B completely immiscible. So there is some kind of solvent A, and you can say that in some container there is a solvent B. These two solvents, they are immiscible. Okay, you are putting this. like this in diagram. Now solute S is soluble in both of these solvents. So let's say there is some kind of solute which could also solubilize in this. This can also solubilize in this. 100 gram of S, you are adding a solute. What you are adding is 100 gram of this, which has 2 kg of A and B. A is also 2 kg, B is also of 2 kg. Means they are kept in a equal amount. So they are not going to make a difference because the amount is same. Now what would be the distribution of this 100 gram solute in phase A and phase B? That depends upon their solubility. And what has been given that solute A is, so the solute can dissolve in A or solute can dissolve in a B. What is being said that the solute A is 1.5 times more soluble as compared to the solvent B. So the equilibrium would be that the solute would be 1.5 times should be more as compared to the B. Or you can say that they could be in a ratio of, you can multiply it, or you can say it like 3, they are in a ratio of 3:2. So solute S can dissolve in A as well as B in a ratio of 3:2 or 1.5:1. So we have to distribute this 100 gram in the solvent A and B according to the ratio. So 100 gram in a solvent A would be 3 out of 5. So you can say that this would be around 20 into 3, 60 gram. This would be in a solvent A. In solvent B, this is 100 gram solute. Solubility is only 2/5 because the ratio of solubility is 3:2. It will come out to be 40 gram. So what is being asked over here? Let's go through this. The amount of solute in a solvent A phase. So in a solvent A phase, the answer will come out to be 60 gram. So correct answer is 60 gram. Moving to next question. This question is straightforward from the mole concept. The question is asking is the number of molecules of a nucleotide of a molecular weight 300 gram per mole present in 10 picomole would be, and you have to give it in at 10 raised to power 12 powers. So it is at 10 picomoles, 10 picomoles, and you have to actually count that what are the number of molecules in this 10 picomoles. What we mean by 10 picomoles? You can say it is at 10 into 10 raised to minus 12 moles. And you know that what are the number of molecules in 1 mole. So you can put this value over here, 10 into 10 raised to minus 12, and if we put that is, you know that 1 mole is equivalent to 6.023 into 10 to the power 23 molecules. And even if you put a round of value, let's say you put over here 1 mole is equal to 6 into 10 to the power 23 molecules. So when you solve this, you will get 10 into 10 to the minus 12. This could be referred to as 10 to the minus 11 into 6 into 10 to the power 23. If you solve this, you will get 6 into 10 to the power 12. So 10 to the power 12 is already given. So answer would be 6. So for question number 21, this is a straightforward question. This would be the number of molecules in 10 picomoles. We doesn't have to do anything with this molecular weight because number of moles are if given. You can directly calculate the number of molecules. Yes. Moving to question number 22. Basically, this question is from mass transfer. Means you are putting one. You can say, let's say this is some kind of container which is having a liquid phase, and you are putting one air bubble into it, and this air bubble, when you put, this is of radius r, if you introduce it into liquid, from air you are putting it into a liquid, same bubble, it splits into 8 small bubbles. It is being given that the same, it gets split into 8 small bubbles. All of them, they are of we can say same radius, identical radius. In this case, you have to identify the ratio of interfacial surface area to gas phase volume for the system when it changes from 3R to 3N by R, where you have to calculate the value of N. And value of N could be calculated by this equation, that N is equal to interfacial surface area divided by pi d square or pi r square. And if you put these values for case 1 and case 2, when it is in air and when it is water, you will get the answer 2. Question number 23, this is again from a mathematics section. What you have to do is you have to calculate the eigenvalue for matrix, the 2 by 2 matrix. For this, what you have to do is that first you have to calculate the, for calculating an eigenvalue, first you have to calculate index of eigenvalue. When you calculate the index, then the second step would be you have to go for an, you have to identify set minus lambda I, then you have to go for the finding the determinants of A minus lambda I, and once you will able to this, you will able to calculate the values of possible eigenvalues, and out of these possible eigenvalues you have to identify that which of the eigenvalue is highest. So you will identify that the highest eigenvalue will come out to be 3. Moving to the question number 24, this is the question from biostats, but it is a very simple, easier question. It is being said that there is a normal random variable. So normal random variable hai, which is having a mean of 0, means values could be on negative sides from this and values could be positive sides from this. And the standard deviation is equal to 3, means the values could reach to -3 or values standard deviation could be up to a plus 3. So in other words, mean plus minus standard deviation, mean is 0 and plus minus values could be given as 3. Now question is that if the probability that on a random draw the values of random variable greater than 0, so that's a straightforward question, that is the values which are greater than 0 would be 50%, the values which would be lesser than 0 would be also 50%, and it is being said that the probability, and probability is always out of 1, so you can say the probability of being greater is also 0.5, the same probability would be the probability of getting a value lesser than 0. So answer of this would be correct answer would be 0.5. Again, you don't need to go for any kind of calculation, simple logic you can apply over here. This is question 25. Again, this is from mathematics section. It is being said that there is kind of a variable of function x with the time, given time is this, and time, the value of that is y at, you can say time 2 value is 2 and y value at 1 is given to be 1. So y2 minus y1, it will come out to 2 minus 1. Similarly, this is that you have calculated change in dy, dt, initially the change, you can say t, value of t is 1 and value of initial t is 0. So this value will also come out to 2 minus 1, 1 minus 0. If you put this value, you will get 1 by 1, answer will come out to be 1. In this way, you can also calculate this answer. So these were the questions, first 25 questions, each question was carrying 1 marks. So in next session, we are going to discuss the questions, rest of the questions, around 20 questions, where each question was of 2 marks. So do subscribe our YouTube channel, IFS Online Life Sciences, so you stay updated, you get alert, and still you have not registered or you have not hit a bell icon of our channel, to hit a bell icon and subscribe to our channel so that you always remain informed about the whatever free videos we are going to upload on this our channel. So once again, thank you, bye bye, I'm signing out.